Thanks for joining me today. My name is Sean and I'm a registered dietitian in the state of Oregon. And today I'm going to be teaching you about my top 10 tips for getting healthy. My first tip is eat 3 square meals a day. I know we've been taught this our whole life, but it's really the truth. I see a lot of patients that eat 1 meal a day, 2 meals a day, and the thing is, we need to be having 9 servings of fruits and vegetables every day, 3 servings of whole grains, we need to have nuts and seeds, beans. There's all this food, and food is medicine. Food isn't just energy to help us go throughout our day. Food is the building blocks for how our body heals and maintains its health. And so when we only have 2 meals a day, we're really sacrificing a big part of that nutrition. There's no way you can get in enough of the good foods that you need to every day to stay healthy if you're only having 2 meals a day. Tip number 2, fruits and vegetables should make up the majority of your diet. I have this 50-25-25 rule. So 50% of the food in my house is fruits and vegetables. 50% of my time at the grocery store is spent in the produce section. 50% of my shopping cart or my basket is fruits and vegetables. And when I have a meal, 50% of my plate is fruits and vegetables. So that needs to make up the foundation. Okay, the foundation. Not the entree of the meal, not the meat. Our diet needs to consist of fruits and vegetables, and then the other foods just are used for flavorings, additives, some carbohydrates, but fruits and vegetables are king. Tip number 3, keep meat portions to the size of the palm of your hand. That's about 3 to 4 ounces. I recommend no more than 6 to 8 ounces of meat per day. So that's 3 ounces at lunch and that's 3 ounces at dinner. That is plenty. You don't need more than that. Again, remember tip number 2, fruits and vegetables need to make up the majority of your diet. So if you have a big piece of meat that's taking up the whole plate, it's going to push some of those other healthy foods off. So remember, 3 to 4 ounces at a meal is more than enough. Tip number 4 is don't forget the micronutrients. Today we're focusing on high carb or low carb diets, high fat or low fat diets, where we're getting our protein from, and the bottom line is I don't really care too much about the macronutrients. I don't. What I care more about is the micronutrients, things like nutrient-dense foods that are high in vitamins and minerals like fruits, vegetables, things that are high in antioxidants like spices and herbs, having your nuts and seeds that have a lot of like magnesium and zinc and selenium in them. And so I like to focus on the micronutrient density of foods and not so much the carbs, fats, and proteins. Nature has already figured that out. When you have a banana, an apple, an orange, a potato, broccoli, nature, or oatmeal, rice, whatever it may be, nature has already figured out the perfect macronutrient ratio. Those foods have fat, carbs, and proteins in them, and it's already been figured out. You don't need a certain macronutrient ratio. What you do need is a diet that's high in micronutrients. So the micronutrients are going to be the most dense in plant-based foods. Tip number 5, when I'm picking up any product that's made from a grain, so whether it's barley, rye, spelt, wheat, quinoa, whatever it may be, I always look for the word whole, W-H-O-L-E. So if you're buying a product that's made from wheat flour, I always flip it around and make sure that below that nutrient facts label where they have the ingredients, it always says whole wheat. If it just says wheat flour, it's not good enough. So white pasta, things like that, it'll say durum wheat flour. It won't say whole wheat. It just has to say W-H-O-L-E, whole. That means that the fiber, the bran, and the germ are in those, all 3 parts of the grain. They haven't stripped it of the fiber, the vitamins, the minerals that you find in our refined white products. So, whole is what I look for every time. And again, I don't really care too much what's on the nutrient facts label, the fats, carbs, proteins. I don't care too much about that other than the sodium. I care more about what's the ingredients. If you're buying foods that are single ingredients, then the macronutrients figure themselves out. So it's about what you buy and not so much the breakdown. Tip number 6, drink mostly water, coffee, or black tea. These foods are fine for us to consume. we should be peeing roughly 10 times a day. Our pee should be the color of like either light yellow or clear. Shouldn't be dark. It shouldn't have a strong yellow color to it. It should just have a tinge of yellow, or it should be white, with the exception of the first pee of the day. So half a gallon a day minimum of fluids, 3 quarts or almost 100 ounces of fluids per day if you're out here in the sun and it's hot out. But 2 to 3 quarts a day is what we need. Peeing 10 times a day minimum. Stop drinking sodas and juices. They increase our risk for things like diabetes and inflammatory processes, and it's not good. It's extra weight. And someone might say, well, what about diet soda? And it's like, it's still very acidic, increases your risk for things like kidney stones, and so you don't want that. Diet soda isn't a health food. It might not have any calories in it, but I don't care. It's like a man-made product. It's a chemical. Stop drinking that stuff. Drink mostly water, black coffee. If you want to put like a little dash of like almond milk or something in it, I don't care. But I'm trying to stay away from the sugars and the creamers and the fancy coffees. And then of course tea is fantastic for us. Tip number 7, food should look like what it did when it was harvested, how you would see it on a farm. And this goes back to a couple tips ago when I was mentioning about the nutrient facts label, the carbs, fats, protein breakdown. It'll have cholesterol, sodium, fiber, sugars, that kind of stuff. I like to buy food that resembles as close to it did in nature. One example is Cheerios. Cheerios are made from oats. You're much better eating oatmeal than you are Cheerios. You're much better eating the intact grains, the quinoa, the rice, the barley, the spelt, the rye, than you are eating products made from the flour of those grains. When we mill those grains down into flours, they digest quicker, they increase inflammation, they increase our blood sugars. So the more intact, whole that the grain is when it came as it existed in nature on the farm, when the farmer harvested it from the crop, those are the best foods. So I'm focusing on foods like fruits and vegetables and nuts and seeds and the intact grains. Those intact grains, those are the best foods to have because they're as close to nature as possible. You just want it to go from farm to the grocery store, farm to table. You don't want it to go farm to processing plant to processing plant to processing and then back to the grocery store. You don't want that. There's no Cheerio plant, there's no Fig Newton plant, there's no Oreo plant, there's no tortilla chip plant. We need to be eating the corn, the intact wheat, the quinoa, the whole grains. And that's why I say that the macronutrients aren't very important, because when we eat the foods that are as close to nature as possible, nature's already figured out the nutrient breakdown of what that should look like. And so other than maybe some added sodium, so I always look for the sodium, make sure that the sodium value is less than the calories. That way I don't have more than 2,000 milligrams of sodium a day. But I don't really care about the macronutrient breakdown, because as long as the ingredients, which are listed right below the macronutrient breakdown, are just individual ingredients. Like when I get peanut butter, it's just peanuts. When I've got it's just individual ingredients. That's it. I went to Costco the other day and I'm looking at my cart. I'm looking at everybody else's cart. Now, of course, most of the things in Costco are in bags, boxes, cans, bottles. But that's okay, because when you look at the ingredients, I'm buying individual foods and assembling them myself here at the house. Other people are buying foods that have already been several processing plants down the line, and you look at the ingredient label. The longer the ingredient label, the worse it is. You want to have one ingredient. That's it. And so buy foods close to nature. They'll have single ingredients, and then you don't have to worry about nutrient fact reading except for the sodium. Tip number 8, if you're still hungry after you have dinner, have a piece of fruit. Instead of going back for seconds for the entrees or some of the side dishes, unless the side dishes are like vegetables or fruit, you want to go and have some fruit after dinner. So if you're still hungry, wait 30 minutes, have a banana, apple, orange, have some dates, eat some whole food, fill up on the good stuff. Sometimes I even eat fruit before while I'm cooking, and then that way I tend to eat less at dinner, even though my dinners are pretty healthy. Or this morning I had my green smoothie before I have my breakfast. That way I know I'm getting in the good stuff and I'm not sacrificing it. Number 9, avoid supplements that aren't whole foods. I'm not anti-supplement. What I'm about is extracts. So they might take the active ingredient or the active compound from a food, and like resveratrol from wine or grapes, and they buy these supplements and they eat these individual extracts of whole food. You don't want that. When I pick up a supplement, it's a whole food. Like amla powder is just dried Indian gooseberries, or matcha is just ground up green tea leaves. So they're supplements, but it's a whole food, just dried, powdered down, and so you can add it and consume it in concentration, but you're not ripping out a single ingredient from a food and eating that in isolation, because we know that that won't do you any good. Supplements that are just active ingredients, active compounds of whole food don't help you. That active compound that we're after, that the supplement is targeting, works best when it has all of the ingredients in it, the fiber, the vitamins, the minerals. The active ingredient works best when it's tied in with the whole food. Once you separate it out, it doesn't work the same. Tip number 10, diets don't have to be black and white. It doesn't have to be all vegan or nothing, or all omnivore or nothing. It doesn't have to be, oh, I'm vegetarian like 100%. Diets can be black and white. They can be whatever you want to make them. So if you want to be pescatarian Monday, Wednesday, Friday, go for it. If you want to be vegetarian on Mondays and the weekends, you do your thing. If you want to be vegan but have some cake at a wedding that might have some eggs or milk in it, you do it. It doesn't have to be black and white, and I think that's why a lot of people get turned off to different diets or different ways of eating and opportunities to be healthy, is because they think it's an all or nothing. It's a success or failure. And so why even try if you think you fail, you know? And so, not to say that's the right way to look at things, but that's, maybe how a lot of people do. And so, it doesn't have to be cut and dry. You can, I know I have friends that don't have any meat in the house. They eat vegetarian at the house. And then if they go out to eat, they might get some meat or chicken or something like that, fish, but they don't bring any of that into the house. And so be creative with your diet. Figure out what it is you want, and then you could follow a dietary pattern that matches that. It doesn't have to have a label on it. I hope you found these tips I hope you found these tips helpful. If you haven't checked out my YouTube channel, Feeling Fit, or my website, SeanTheRD.com, I highly recommend you go over there, check out some more videos. Cheers.